Happy Sunday to y'all. Thank you all for being here today. Everybody doing good? We all right? Awesome. Great. Hey, my name is John, if we haven't had a chance to meet yet. Couple things before we really jump in today. Number one, part of the way that we designed this series and this kind of awakened period that we're in our community, number one is that you would have the opportunity with the people that you know, maybe that you're in your family that you work with, to just say, hey, would you just come and sit with me? And a lot of you have done that, but it's just a great opportunity with what we're talking about week in and week out to just say, hey, come sit with me and be exposed to what I'm exposed to. And I think that maybe, Jesus can do for you what he's done for me. So it's a really easy invite for you. And we're getting ready to come up on Easter. And so there's going to be 6 services around Easter weekend. So lots of opportunities to invite people to come with you. Number 2, in terms of Awaken, make sure you get on and find the social media somewhere, Instagram, Facebook. I think they connect in some way, because there's a place for you, if you want to and your schedule allows, to go pray with other people in our community every day. So they're publishing a schedule of where you can go do that. I went downtown to the waterfront this last week. I think it was Wednesday afternoon, and there was 12 other people down there at the pavilion praying, and we were from 5 different churches. So it was kind of a cool experience. So maybe do that. And then I don't remember what the last thing was I was going to tell you. So, I do know. If you're our guest today, thanks so much for being here. If you have a couple of minutes after the service, me or someone like me is going to be in that back corner over there, and would love to just tell you a couple of super important things that you need to know about Christ Church and your experience before you get out of here. So leave your kids and it'll be fine. All right, Luke chapter 8, we're going to drop right into the point in the life of Jesus' ministry where tons of people are following him. There's always a crowd. He'll do this amazing miracle. He'll do some kind of a, mind-blowing teaching, and then he'll try to run away from them just to get some time alone, and then he'll resurface somewhere, and there's a crowd already waiting for him. So that's what's going to happen in Luke chapter 8. And to kind of set up the whole thing, I got to show you some pictures of grandkids, because, we just had the 4th one recently. So Chris, my wife, and I went to Cincinnati. That's where our son moved last year. We're working on forgiveness there. But so here's Justice. He's the newest one to the family, and I may have sent this ahead of time just so he could wear it. And there's lots of pictures with our Duke gear on and ACC champs. All right, there you go. But that's Justice. He's doing awesome. He's not a month old yet. But a lot of what we were doing is to hang out with Skylar, who's the oldest grandkid for us. And we were like on entertainment a lot of the time. So she has this membership at a trampoline park. And I was there in the past. And so I was like, let's try it again. So I literally just followed her all day. And she was like, Pop, do a somersault. And I was like, I can't disappoint the kids, so let's try it. Jump into this foam ball pit. But here's the deal. I wake up the next morning and for several days afterward, and it was just like, man, I don't know what I did, but man, there's something happening in my back. And it's like someone would walk by and just, touch me on the shoulder. Oh, right there. It's like, oh man, you kind of found that spot right there. That's it. That kind of hurts right there. And in a lot of ways, I think that's what we're kind of doing in this series, okay? It's like every single week, it's like we're kind of peeling back a layer, and we're just kind of putting our finger on something, if we allow ourselves to do it, and go, man, that you found it. It's right there. Like, that kind of hurt. And the point is not to, like, poke on things that actually hurt. It is to actually identify it so that it can be healed. And here in a few minutes, when we get to the end, I'm going to invite you to pray again, which is kind of what we're doing every week now. And just like, would you just kind of lean into it and start to identify it? Yeah, that is the thing that hurts. Like, you touched it, and today is the day that I'm going to pray that God would actually heal it. Okay. So Luke chapter 8, verse 41. 4 people, by the way, write about the life of Jesus. 3 of them, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, all tell a version of this story. Okay, so remember, big crowd. Luke 8:41, just then, okay, large crowd, a man named Jairus came. He's a leader of the synagogue. And he's not just any man, okay? He's a very well-known guy in the community. He's kind of like the local church. He's the administrator, okay? So he oversees the building and the grounds. He's the guy that puts the service together. What are the songs? Who's going to read the scriptures? That's Jairus, okay? So he's a pretty big deal. He's got a high kind of a social position, and he has some authority. It says that he fell down at Jesus' feet, and he pleaded with him, okay, he begged him to come to his house because he had an only daughter about 12 years old, and she was dying. Okay. Now, culturally, okay, men are not typically going to bow down. We're not going to like lower ourselves to do that, and kneel in front of somebody. You got the robes, okay? Number one, you got the robes, and so culturally, we're not gonna risk showing a little thigh there, okay? But also, you got a lot of Jewish leaders who are starting to view Jesus as a problem, and we hadn't really accepted him as the Messiah, and a lot of those guys actually wanted Jesus to be arrested for blasphemy. As a leader in a local church, Jairus was probably a part of some of those conversations. We're not really sure about this guy, but it says he has a 12-year-old girl who's in a really bad place. Now, if you're a dad, okay, and you have a girl, there's a special connection between dads and girls, okay? So we raised two. They were both 12-year-olds at one time. 12-year-olds should be going to Girl Scouts and riding bikes and watching YouTube videos and, having sleepovers. That's 12-year-old girls trying out for cheerleading. Culturally, okay, she's entering into what is considered really the prime years of her life. And she has a dad who loves her enough to humble himself and to come to Jesus and say, listen, man, my kid. And if you're a kid, okay, and you're in here, you have no idea how much your parents love you. Okay? You have no idea how much they love you. Listen, it is always so surreal. I don't know any other word for it. For us to go hang out with our adult kids and to watch your kid love their kid. Anybody understand? This is wild, okay? It's just crazy. And then watch them parent and, all the things we did wrong. It's like, okay, well, look at what you're doing here right now. But to watch your kid love their kid, just wild, okay? And if you've ever had a kid in pain before, right? I mean, you ever had a kid that was in trouble? You ever had a kid walking through a valley? You go, listen, if I could take it all away from you right now, I would do that. Because when that kid is hurting, okay, or in this case, about to die, you do whatever you have to do. I will pay whatever amount it costs. I will follow whatever recommendations you prescribe to me. I'll even ignore public opinions and the controversy, okay, right now, because I would even be willing to fall down at Jesus' feet in desperation, okay, just in case he's actually better and different than what I thought. And desperation, by the way, will sometimes lead you to Jesus, right? And maybe you've been in a situation before where you're like, we cannot control this one, and we've tried everything, and you'll start experimenting, and you'll do everything people recommend, and that's how some of you actually ended up in here, by the way. Those things got so bad in your life, and you didn't know who to turn to or what to try, and you basically ran out of options, and you said to one another or someone, well, okay, listen, I guess this is what it's come to. We're going to try church. And it can feel a little risky and like you've lost some control. Other gospel writers who tell this story say that Jairus actually believes, okay, that if Jesus will just touch her, that she could be healed. And Jesus is like, I could probably do that. All right, let's go. So it says, while he was going, okay, the crowds were nearly crushing him. So, a concert where it's just packed in. You're trying to leave the Jags game and everybody chose the same gate, okay? It's Disney on spring break, okay? Here in a week or two, you guys are going to go there. You're being suffocated by people. You can't move, and we're actually trying to get to this man's daughter, and so time is critical. It says a woman suffering from bleeding for 12 years who had spent all she had on doctors and yet could not be healed by any, which I think is an interesting note from Luke, who writes this, because Luke, we know, is a doctor. And he's willing to say, hey, listen, everybody I know, nobody can help her, okay? She spent so much money, she's not any better. She's tried all the late night infomercials. She did everyone's grandmother's recipe, and nothing helped, okay? She's sick. She has chronic pain. She can't have children. I picture her as she sits at home alone in a recliner with an Afghan and some cats. That's how I picture her, okay? Cats are awesome. The Old Testament mentions, listen, all different kinds of laws and rules that are specific to situations and conditions like she has, okay? She would actually be labeled as unclean, and she would actually need to isolate herself until the entire issue cleared up for her, okay? She needs to be isolated. She's not supposed to go into public. That means she hasn't touched anyone. She hasn't been hugged by anyone for 12 years. Now, 12 years is a long time, okay? Your kid went from kindergarten to high school graduation, okay? That's 12 years. Go back 12 years. The iPhone 5 was new, okay? Some of you are still using it, and if it still works, good for you. I mean, the 4,380 days. She's isolated, she's broke, and she does what desperate people do. It says she approached Jesus from behind and touched the end of his robe. So she's thinking, listen, I don't need to bother him. I don't need to talk to him. I don't need any special kind of attention. I just need to touch his robe. And it means the hem or the edge or the border. And when she does, it says instantly her bleeding stopped. She was healed, okay, immediately. Well, who touched me? Jesus asked. And I don't know if it's just like the way that he said it, but everybody's like, hey, it wasn't me, man. I didn't do it. And then Peter always steps forward and says, Master, the crowds are hemming you in and pressing against you. And so basically what Peter is saying is, I mean, a better question to ask Jesus is, who didn't touch you? I mean, everybody's around here. And I think it's one of those moments where Jesus, if he doesn't say it out loud, looks at Peter and he goes, you are so dumb. Like, why did I pick you? You know, it's just like, so Jesus goes, okay, well, someone did touch me. And I know that because I felt power go out from me. So listen, there's a difference between, hey, there are so many people here right now, and we're just kind of bumping into each other, and what Jesus is referencing here, like, oh, listen, it was different because there was an exchange of power here. And I kind of feel like Jesus is asking like a rhetorical question. Like, I'm not sure that he doesn't actually know the answer. It's like you walk into the kitchen, some of you, and like there's stuff everywhere and it's all over the counter, and you're like, okay, who did this? Oh, you probably already have a pretty good idea who it was, okay? You just want that person to come forward and own it. I think Jesus is actually just giving her a chance to identify herself, which she's not going to do until she has to. I think she's hoping to just kind of go under the radar here. And I think there's lots of reasons. I mean, one is it's a little embarrassing, right? I mean, it's kind of a problem you don't really want to admit, right? I mean, someone let me be a pastor when I was 22 years old. I don't know what they were thinking, but I remember that first year, and I'm going to go make my first hospital visit. I'm just like really eager to get there and be pastoral, and I tell this guy, hey, I hear you have surgery tomorrow, and I'm going to come over there and pray for you. And he's like, no, you don't really need to do that, you know. And I was like, no, let me do this, man. This is my moment. He's like, he was very kind of forceful with the whole thing, like, dude, do not do that. Do not come to the hospital. You don't need to do that. Well, it was only afterwards he had the surgery I realized he was having a hemorrhoids problem, okay? And I was like, okay, I'm glad I skipped on that one because I am not laying hands on you and praying for that one. Okay. She probably doesn't want to be the person to raise her hand and say, oh, yeah, it was me, vaginal hemorrhage right over here, okay? Like the last thing she wants to do is probably be identified and exposed, okay? Maybe it's fear. I mean, it could be fear for sure. Like she knows she doesn't belong there. Not to bring up any bad memories here for anyone, but, you know, it was really this weekend 6 years ago when we said, oh, it sounds like the world's ending, let's cancel church. And, you know, we had COVID. We went through that whole thing, and what a wild time. But you might remember during that period where we could do contact tracing, right? We could actually go back and say, all right, who was the person who started all this? Like this, you know, this super spreader came from, maybe she's afraid of that, you know. She's not supposed to be in public. She's definitely not supposed to be close enough to actually be touching people. And she probably lived always like wondering. She's probably always on edge, just wondering, who's the person that's going to say, hey, you know what? You don't belong here. And so maybe Jesus is going to react that way. I don't know. Some of y'all understand that one, I think, because you thought that when you showed up here, like the roof was going to fall in, right? Man, if I go there, lightning's going to strike. And you're like, really? Do people say that? They say that. I've heard that before, okay? So I think you decide that's not how it works, by the way, okay? God doesn't actually hate you, okay? He actually loves you. And Jesus is for all, and you're welcome here, okay? But maybe she's afraid of making Jesus unclean, okay? This is the way it works, is unclean things tend to actually affect clean things. Meaning, if your kids are throwing up all week and they're running fevers and you're like, okay, listen, we don't think, or we shouldn't, if you do, please stop it. You know what? Well, let's drop them off in the nursery and all of the healthy kids will rub off on them. That's not how it works, okay? Clean things don't typically make unclean things better, but that's how it works with Jesus, okay? And even the scriptures actually speak to this whole idea that our best efforts, okay, when we're trying to please God, it says it's really like this bleeding woman in her condition. And we live with this condition of sin every single day, right? And it doesn't matter who we go to or how many things we try or what we try to do to actually address it, until we reach out in faith to Jesus can we actually be made clean. And some of us, I think, have wrongly believed that we're too dirty, like we're too unclean for even Jesus. But listen, the woman does not make Jesus unclean. Jesus makes her clean. So whoever you are, right, whatever it is you think you've done that like creates that distance there, however dirty or damaged, he makes you clean, okay? So when the woman saw she was discovered, now everyone knows, there she is, okay? She came trembling, fell down before him, and in the presence of all the people, she declared the reason that she had touched him and how she was instantly healed. Mark, who writes a version of this story, says that she was thinking in her mind, if I just touch him, not even him, just his clothes, I'll be healed. And listen to what Jesus says to her. He starts and he speaks and he says, daughter, okay, your faith has saved you. Go in peace. You can maybe try to think of all the things maybe this woman has heard in the last 12 years, maybe some of the, I don't know, names she's been called. You have this woman that nobody wants, nobody's going to touch. We don't even know what her name is, right? A woman that we don't know her name. You're bracing potentially for impact when you hear, hey, listen, you're a loved daughter. You're a loved daughter. It's the only time we know of that Jesus actually calls someone daughter. Hey, you risked this. You fought your way to actually get here. That move of faith has saved you, okay? So you take all the anemia, all the pain. You can go in public. You can hug. You can be hugged. You can actually go to worship now and actually be with people. You've got a quality of life. You have some hope. You're full of thanksgiving now. And so when we say in the last few weeks, and we'll say it for a couple more, okay, if you have dead and dying things in your life, they can actually be brought back, okay, through the power of Jesus. This is what we're talking about. You got your life back, okay, and healed and whole, okay. All right, it's only part of the story because meanwhile, right, there's a meanwhile here. You picture Jairus who's watching this whole thing, and we're on the way to my house, and now Jesus has stopped, and there's a crowd, and he's actually taking time to have a conversation, and, hey, who touched me? And I'm sure Jairus is going, I don't care. Let's go to the house, okay? Let's move on, right? I mean, anyone been on hold with TDS lately? No show of hands, but like, come on, man, this is urgent, right, you know? Help me. This doesn't seem to be urgent for you like it is me. 49. While Jesus is still speaking, someone came from the synagogue leader's house, family member, neighbor, I don't know, and he said, listen, hey, man, your daughter's dead. You don't need to bother him anymore. In other words, it is too late, man. Stop wasting his time because, yeah, sure, Jesus can cure sick people, right? But once they're dead, just move on. Jesus is for colds and surgeries and cancer, and he's got a lot to worry about in the Middle East right now, but you don't trouble him with this one. And I think a lot of times when we go through these stories and events, I do try to take a little bit of time and just sit there and go, what is this man really experiencing right now? And to be honest with you, I couldn't spend a whole lot of time there because it was actually very difficult because you think about this guy, okay? Jairus, he left his wife at home alone. And a 12-year-old, your only girl who's dying, and he left, right? I mean, he tries to get some help, and it doesn't work out. And so now he's not there in that moment. He's not there to hold her hand. He's not there to kiss her. He's not there to say, hey, I love you so much. Your mom and I are so proud of you. What a blessing you've been to our family. Like, he's not there. And if you've ever been in that spot before, like, there's a part of us that wants to blame Jesus. Like, if you had just gone, I mean, but you can't help me because you decided to help someone else. And there are times where it just doesn't seem like God does what I think he's supposed to do. And when Jesus heard that, he answered him. Two things. Don't be afraid, only believe. For Jesus, it's one or the other. All right, you can have fear right now in this moment, or you can have faith, but they can't exist together. So don't be afraid, only believe. and she will be saved. Same word as we just saw with the woman. She was saved. You'll be made well, healed, and whole, okay? And if you believe, and if you keep on believing, and if you believe with the faith that you just approached me with earlier, okay? Believe and don't let anything stop you. She will be saved. Okay? So after he came to the house, he let no one enter with him except I'll take Peter, John, James, Dad, Mom. 6 of us. We're going in there because this is not going to be a spectacle, okay? And everyone's crying and mourning for her. And if you heard Matt's message last week, he talked about a lot of times there are professionals who would show up and kind of create this vibe, okay? And Jesus is like, will you all just stop, please? She's not dead. She's just asleep. And they laughed at him because they knew, yeah, I'm pretty sure she's dead. Now, to be asleep, okay, throughout the scriptures, that's a euphemism, okay, when we're just talking about death. Like our word that we use for cemetery comes from the Greek word that means sleeping place, okay? So, I mean, who has a kid that thinks naps are punishment, by the way? And then you got older and you're like, oh, man, listen, it's a gift, okay? Like, there's Jesus. Okay, everybody, she's just napping. It's just a nap, all right? In other words, what I'm about to do right now is pretty much like you trying to bring a kid, wake him up from a nap. And Jesus knows it's just a temporary condition, okay? And they laughed at him. Maybe you've had a time like that, though, where you really believed in something, and you're like, all right, I got great faith, and you leaned in with all of the trust that you had, and I believe Jesus can do this, and he's got the whole world in his hands. You can laugh all you want, okay? I don't care. So he took her by the hand, and he called out, and I don't know if is that like authoritative, like loud voice and declaration? Is that, I like to think of Jesus with a little whisper and a wink. I don't know how you like your Jesus, okay? I just want you to see this. Child, get up. And you see just the power in his words. That's it. There's no fanfare. There's no formula. Just a really simple, hey, little girl, get up. And see what happened. Her spirit returned. She got up at once. And after every nap, you should get a snack. So he gave orders that she be given something to eat. And here's the end just for fun. Her parents were astounded, yeah, but he instructed them to tell no one what had happened. And I think, at least there are times like this where Jesus is like, I really don't need any more PR right now. Got plenty of, no more exposure, okay? Don't want to be invited to every funeral, okay? And I don't need people to follow for the wrong reasons. By the way, if you're a parent of a 12-year-old and you're taking notes, you should write this down. No 12-year-old girl needs to be the center of attention. If I was you, I'd use that later and say, Pastor John said. Okay, 2 events that are intertwined, 2 people with similar desperation, 2 people who fall at Jesus' feet. You've got Jairus, okay, who's named, he's known, he's respected. You have this woman, not named, very low on the social ladder. Okay, females, 2 females, 12-year-old girl and a woman with a 12-year struggle. One gets called child, one gets called daughter. One gets brought back from the dead, and I know this sounds like the same thing. I think they're different. One gets brought back to life. I'll give you 2 takeaways on 2 questions, all right? And then I'm going to ask you to pray. And listen, I really want to prep you for this one because the first service, they did not catch this at all. I said, hey, I would love to invite you all to stand. And you know what they did? They all sat there. So here in a few minutes when I say I would love to invite you all to stand, that's what I mean, okay? Are we clear? Everybody got it? Awesome, okay. I know y'all are smarter. 2 takeaways and 2 questions. Number 1, there's life-giving power in his words. There's life-giving power in his words. And I want to approach it this way. John, one of Jesus' disciples, writes the book of John, starts his gospel this way. He says, in the beginning was the Word, capital W Word. It's a title for Jesus. The Word was with God. That's mind-blowing. And the Word was God, okay? And there's a lot to unpack there, but essentially I want you to see that Jesus is given this title as the Word. He's with God in the beginning. So when he opens his mouth at creation and says, let there be light, the power in his words, okay, created light. When Jesus starts doing his ministry, okay, there's a day where a guy comes to him and he says, man, I have an employee back home, super valuable. He's sick. He's about to die. I don't even think you're going to have time to get back there, but I know that if you just say the word, he'll be healed. And Jesus says, okay, tell that guy to get back to work because he's healed, okay? He says one word to the woman, which is daughter, she's healed. He says 3 words to the girl, child, get up, she's brought back to life. Life-giving power in his words. Okay. I don't know if any of you would recognize this guy. His name is Chad Wright. He's a former Navy SEAL. He loves Jesus. And I think it was actually last summer he was on the Joe Rogan show. He shared a story about a friend of his who had pancreatic cancer and was in the hospital and just living out his days. The guy's wife contacted Chad and said, I know y'all haven't been in touch for years, but he wants to see you one more time. So he started going to the hospital regularly. He would sit with him 2 times a week for 8 to 10 hours a day and just read the scriptures. He said I would read a scripture to him, and then he would say, read another one. And as I was reading the words off of the page, they were manifesting like power and hope within him. You witnessed a change in his expression. He says he would have been in bed for days. The next thing you know, after reading the scripture, we'd be sitting out on the porch. That the word was giving him power. He says they had a camera in the room, and so when Chad would leave and walk out of the room, his friend would be looking above him, and he's reaching out. Okay? And at the end, when he passed away, he sits straight up in bed, reaches both hands straight up, and then he lays back down and departs. Some of y'all experienced some of the power of the words of Scripture a few weeks back. Okay? When we read from Genesis chapter 1 to Revelation chapter 22, right here, continuously, out loud, over 74 hours. Some of the stories I heard were just amazing. Did y'all get a chance? Some of you got a chance to read, okay? I sat out there in the lobby for the first 12 hours of that experience, and some of you were nervous. I get it. Some of you didn't want to mess up. You didn't want to get Leviticus. I understand all that, okay? But I saw people walk out of here after reading in tears. Like, what happened in there? Nothing. I was just reading the Bible. You said you were emotional. Sometimes people were weeping. Sometimes we're laughing over God's perfect timing. Like, oh man, I read the right word at just the right time. Some of us read in here alone. Some of us read while other people sat out there and listened. Some of us read with our kids standing right here next to us. And I got to read the first words from Genesis and the last words from Revelation. And I wasn't prepared. You know, John, who writes the Gospel of John, wrote Revelation as well. And at the end, I'm reading, and I read these words, I, John. There were some amazing experiences in here. And we kicked off our Thursday night service a few hours after that. If you came to Thursday night, it was like, what has happened right now? It was the words of Jesus being spoken over this entire place, a feeling of love in our building, just speaking it aloud. I think we've found a new way to kick off every year. Life-giving power in his words. So one question about that. What is a word that you need to hear today? Okay, what is a word that you need to hear today? You know, the heading, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but if you have a hard copy of the scriptures, the numbers, the verses, the chapters, the headings that people are writing there, that's not part of the scripture. That's what people have added after the fact. But the heading right here oftentimes will say, the woman with the issue of blood. That's how we know her, okay? You ever noticed how we tend to call people by like their issue or their problem and not their name or actually the miracle, okay? Oh, that's the guy who had an affair, right? I mean, she's the divorced lady. That's the foster kid. He's the alcoholic, the disabled vet. I mean, they're the poor family. They're the ones with the prodigal child. But Jesus doesn't call us by our worst moment or our deepest wound or actually our greatest need, okay? You have a woman known by her issue who actually hears a new word, the word's daughter, okay? Hey, daughter, okay? And I noticed in my Bible the heading actually says, a woman healed. So what would be a word or words you need to hear from Jesus today, okay? That would actually be better to reflect who you are now and what Jesus has actually done and how he feels about you. Like, what if we weren't actually defined by our issue or our actual circumstance, our failure, right? Our challenge, but rather by what Jesus called you. Okay, there's life-giving power in his words. Number 2, don't miss your cue. I'm going to ask you to stand in a few minutes, okay? Number 2, there's life-changing healing in his wings. Okay, there's life-changing healing. You're like, what does that mean? Well, it's W. We had word and now we got wings. So there's life-changing healing in his wings. So you remember this woman, okay? She actually believed all she had to do was to touch Jesus, or actually just something connected to Jesus, and she would be healed. Now, where did she get that idea? I can't say for sure. I'm going to go with 98% sure on this one. A good possibility that in the same way that she knew some of those Old Testament passages about what she couldn't do, I think she knew some of those Old Testament scriptures about what Jesus could do. Okay, here's what I mean. The ancient Hebrews were actually commanded by God to place special tassels, okay, on the corners of their garments. These tassels, okay, the Hebrew word tzitzit, okay. You can Google it later, but you might get all kinds of fascinating images, okay. But it's just a symbol, okay, of their commitment to obey the commands of God that specifically were found in the Torah, or the first 5 books of the Bible, okay. Had all different kinds of colors they needed to add, and symbols, and, numbers, and so, 5 knots. You got to put 5 knots on these tassels, and it represents the first 5 books of the Bible. You have to have 4 spaces, okay, between these. And that's the 4 letters for the name of God, Yahweh, okay, YHWH. So this garment, it's really kind of like just a prayer shawl, okay? You just kind of wrap it around you a little bit, and like a cape, okay? And then if you were to hold it up, it would look like you had wings, okay? You have these tassels that are hanging down from it. At the end of the Old Testament, Malachi writes these words, "But for you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness," which came to be a play on words of S-O-N, okay, Son of Righteousness, "will rise with healing in its," or his, wings, okay? And I just love the last part. "You will go out and playfully jump like calves from the stall." It's just kind of a fun way to tack on to the end. Hey, there's a lot of joy and laughter and hope. So listen, what Malachi is saying is, okay, there's going to come a son who's going to be full of righteousness, and there's going to be healing in his wings. So you say, okay, well, what if? Okay, what if he, or Jesus, is... What if he's the guy that actually has healing? What if he's full of righteousness? And she had a lot of reasons to go home, to not risk it, to not be... One reason to fight through, this one. If I could just grab onto the edge, I believe there's healing because he's the Son of Righteousness. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Question, what is one thing you need healed today? Okay, what's one thing you need healed today? Jairus believes that if Jesus would come and touch his daughter, okay, she'd be healed. Woman believes if I go and touch Jesus, I could be healed. So it's not really about how it's done, it's really about where the power comes from. And so whatever it is that you think is dead or dying in your life, it's not over until Jesus says it's over. Right? Jesus is the one who pronounces things dead, and so what is it? I don't know. Relationship, dream, might be something of your own making. It's mental, it's emotional. What needs to be healed? A fear, relationship with a prodigal child. Is it financial, physical? What needs to be healed? Feeling of hopelessness. Is it I'm stuck? Is it, man, I got dragged down a road I didn't want to go to. So what is it? And do you believe there's life-changing healing for you? Here's your cue. Here's what we're going to do today. I'm going to invite you to stand. I figured out how to do it. No. Advanced warnings. Every week we've been inviting you to come down here where there are some wonderful people who would love to pray for you. And that's one of the options today. So here's what I want to do. Here's a woman who comes clean in front of everyone. Okay? And so that's what I'm going to invite you to do. You're like, well, what do you mean by come clean? Well, I know we want to, we do, but we don't want to put ourselves out there and look stupid. So most of the time we just kind of keep it hidden, all right? But what we keep hidden can't be healed, okay? And so if you hide, you can't be found. If you can't be found, you can't be touched. If you can't be touched, you can't be healed. That's how it works. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do is, we always respond with worship. You have a few minutes to simply just come down here, let these people pray for you, and it's this simple. Hey, here's what I want you to pray about. One sentence. They're going to pray for you. At the end of it, they're going to say, hey, thanks for sharing that with me. How do you feel? And you're going to go, no different. And then maybe they're going to pray for you again. Or maybe you're going to walk away and go, hey, I feel like there was some power that came into my life. I don't know how that's going to work for you. But I know not all of you are going to come down here, so let me give you another way to do this is stand where you are, and when I'm done praying, raise your hand. And this is going to be a little uncomfortable for some of us, but we all got some room to grow here, okay? If you have the Spirit of God in you, okay, you are a follower of Jesus, saved, you know the Spirit's living in you. When you look around you here in a minute and someone actually has their hand raised because they need a prayer for healing, I want you to move towards them and to pray. You're like, well, that'll be uncomfortable. I just said that, okay? But maybe not put an arm around them. Maybe just say, hey, can I pray for you? And see how it goes. And all we're doing is to say, okay, I believe the Son of Righteousness still has healing for me. Let's pray. God, today we just say thank you for yet another story that just tells us more about who you are, what you do, what we can expect from you. God, I don't know what the needs are in this room. Got a few ideas. But maybe encourage today, God, we would just simply identify ourselves. Yeah, I have something that needs healed right now. Maybe right now you would go ahead and lift up your hand, and I can pray for you. I got something that needs healed today, and I don't know what it is, but I know who can do it. So God, like these two, we would come to you maybe and just bow at your feet. God, in desperation, just say, I've tried everything. But today, God, we're going to turn it to you. We're going to ask you for help. We're going to ask you for healing because, God, today we are going to declare that the Son of Righteousness still has healing for us. We're going to pray it in the name of Jesus. Amen.